Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Last Word Music. And today we got a banger for you. We got me. That was a horrible intro. I'm sorry about
You're
that.
chilling, Chuck. Don't worry, bro.
We got me. We got Scotty. We got Deem. How we doing today, boys?
Pretty
Doing
good,
good, man.
Chuck. Thanks for
Doing
asking,
great.
man.
Perfect. Well, today we are going to be reviewing the new album by Kid LAROI, great up-and-coming artist, titled "Fuck Love." But
Yo,
first,
Chuck going explicit, dog. He ain't mentioned the asterisk.
F***CK
F
love.
asterisk asterisk K love.
That's right.
But first, we got a little bit of a sponsor, not necessarily a sponsor, but giving a
Sponsor,
shout.
baby.
We're not getting paid, but if you want to pay
We're
us,
not
go
getting
for it.
paid. But we are giving a little bit of a shout out to our boys, Bars for SARS. It's run by our friends Clark and Chris. Basically, they're selling little like shortbread cookie cake type things, and all the profits are going to COVID relief, which is it's very big of them. It's a very cool thing to do, and we just thought we should shout them out.
Yes, sir.
Let
We-
our big following base know the good
That's
that they're
right,
doing.
baby.
So if you're in the Oregon area, definitely check them out. That's Bars for SARS, SARS.
we should put it in the description of this
Yeah,
video too.
we'll put the link in the description as well. So before we
That's right.
hop into it, we just thought we should shout them out. But boys, without further ado, let's hop into this review. Now, personally, I know I was the first one to listen to this out of all the three. Going into this, I really listened to Kid LAROI. I mean, I know he did that one.
Well, I know
song.
you bump. I know you bump Addison
I
Ray,
know,
Chuck.
I was saying,
I
I
need a
bumped Addison
bad-
Rae when it came out, bro. But other than that, man, I hadn't really listened to him. I hadn't really know what he was about. I heard he was very much inspired by Juice World, so that was kind of something I took in. And then I listened to the album, man, and I was like, this guy is the love child of Juice World and Trippie Redd. He is
Yeah.
just
Yep. I got that very much.
just so melodic in his melody and his voice, and the production is very consistent throughout the album. He's just
Yeah.
it honestly, I know I told you guys this, but it very much feels like Juice's debut album, Goodbye and Good Riddance, in which he's pouring his heart out over his past relationships and everything that went wrong and what he could have done better. And just overall, it was a very heartfelt album, and I really appreciated it. And honestly, man, it went pretty hard too. Like he's got a very very good ear when it comes to picking out type of production he likes, and honestly just make it in general. So
That is true. And before I get to my overall thoughts on the album, I do want to say I can very clearly tell where the Kid LAROI is inspired, as you said, Chuck, with very, very heavy Trippie Redd inspiration. I did not expect that going in because I always knew he was pretty linked to Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD kind of found him on the come up.
Discovered him. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely discovered him. Kind of was in that mentor role for him before his untimely passing. And I know it probably affected the Kid LAROI greatly. Might have affected the recording or the emotions on this recording as well. We do get a feature from the late Juice WRLD on this album, even though it is a little short. But yeah, just to highlight, the kind of genre he's in for people who don't know him, because he is relatively, up and coming. Not many. I wouldn't say he's
he's not necessarily
he's not a household name. He's not widely known. So yeah, and I do want to say, I'm gonna keep it a buck. For me, I think his voice every now and then can get a little shrill, which is kind of my problem with Trippie Redd as well. I think sometimes he can force his upper register a little bit, which I do understand he is doing it for to add to the emotion of the track and to add to kind of that grittiness and sadness. And I can definitely see it being a highlight for a lot of people. Personally, I've never been super into the emo trap wave, sad trap wave. I do mess with Juice WRLD. His voice is incredible too. But I do want to say, for some people, if you've listened to Trippie Redd and you're like, I don't know about his voice, sometimes he can get a little bit weird. You might come into this project and be like, I'm seeing a lot of Trippie Redd here, and that can be good or bad for a lot of people. is kind of what
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that. What do you think?
So if I can give a little bit more background, right? Because the Kid Laroi is an interesting artist in the sense of he's only like 16 years old. This is a very young guy. He's from Australia, which you don't usually see a ton of, hip hop artists coming out of Australia who do so well commercially, especially at such a young age. The album that we're discussing here, which is really more of a mixtape, but it's his debut project, and it reached number 8 in the U.S. chart. So commercially, he's been very successful. His real name is Charlton Kenneth Jeffrey Howard. I don't know where he got the Kid Laroi from, but it works, man.
Crocodile Dundee.
I think he's done a great job of marketing himself and kind of putting himself out there, making himself more of,
I mean, as soon as you made that Addison Rae song.
Yeah, he's definitely taking it. He's definitely taking advantage of that. Yeah.
And like you said, Dimitri and Chuck, he definitely wears his influences on his sleeves.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear. For me, I did not think that was a bonus. I saw that more as a negative. To me, I didn't think the project as a whole was that creative or experimental. Like I said, I wanted to preface by saying this is a 16-year-old kid on his debut mixtape. Yeah. So I wasn't expecting it to be revolutionary.
Don't expect a To Pimp a Butterfly or anything like that.
For sure. Nonetheless, I thought the project was overall very dull, generic, and really uninteresting, to be honest with you. Now, the production, like you said, Chuck, was consistent. That's one way to put it. Another way to put it is it was the exact same beat on every single track, and it was completely generic. He's like the Gunna of emo trap. Okay? The vocal performances were unspectacular, to say the least. He sounded like a combination of Juice WRLD and Trippie Redd, like you mentioned.
Definitely.
But for me, it just didn't work, kind of what Dimitri said. I can understand, actually, if you like his vocals. It was more of a preference thing there.
Yeah.
And I can understand if you would like the production on this album just because you're super into the emo trap kind of vibes, like you're a big fan of Juice WRLD and Trippie Redd. But as someone who isn't a huge fan of that genre, I really need to see something more unique and special to really appreciate it. So for me, the emo trap production on this thing didn't stand out in any way. It wasn't, anything that I hadn't heard before done better.
I do want to say real quick, it was, although it wasn't stand out, it was definitely very solid in terms of just
the highlights of this album.
All of the beats sound very good. The bass is really heavy when it needs to be. Hi-hats roll when they need it. It's solid production. It isn't, crazy or anything, which I'm sure he wasn't.
The highlights of this record for me were actually in the instrumental pieces, which on some records I thought came off, on some tracks, it came off a little cheesy, a little weird. Like sometimes he came off with these, like violin string pieces.
Chuck, like the orchestral parts at the end
of
the songs?
It was over dramatic and overemphasized. But there were a lot of songs where, like for example, the track "Running" had a really good beat. Just kind of brought out like a very dramatic, sad mood that I thought he worked well and fit his voice. But as a whole, really the unfortunate truth of this record is that the Kid Laroi has nothing to say. Like he has no creative message to put out on this thing is what I feel like. Like you said, Chuck, it's about his heartbreak and his past lovers. But every song follows the same formula where he just tells you that he's in pain. He doesn't examine the pain or what's coming from it. He starts off by telling you a very weakly put together story where he says that he was unfaithful, but his partner was also unfaithful because they're both 16 years old and stupid, which makes sense. But, at that point, it's just generic. It's just like any relationship ever. And then he just says, well, this hurts me and I'm in pain, but he doesn't examine his pain. He doesn't convey it well with, great wordplay, great lyricism, or even his voice to me didn't convey his pain that well. And then by the end of all these songs, it's the most frustrating part because you're waiting for him to grasp at a conclusion. And every time he comes out and he's like, you know what I've learned from this is that bitches ain't shit and I don't need women. And, relationships you have these standout bars like on the track Selfish, the last track, which is like a closer to the whole thing, where his ultimate message is, oh, this relationship sucks. So in my next one, I'm going to be selfish and just abuse my partner.
That was a little bit of a weird message. Yeah, I feel like on the last
track. He has this bar on the last one. He said, you showed me that you ain't shit and these bitches is dangerous. It's like, what are you grasping at here? He has bars like, now I'm a savage, but it's your fault. You made it happen. And then the song, what's the track? Not Fair with Corbin. I thought the Kid LAROI was all right on this one, but God, Corbin's vocals were hideous. They were hideous, dude.
Yeah.
It ruined the track for me.
They were
the
bad.
first thing he says, the beat comes on. I'm like, okay, this is all right. Then he comes on with this horrible out of pitch voice, and he says, "I can't come unless you kiss me. I don't know her, but she's saying that she missed me."
Yep.
And it's just it's terrible. It was really a terrible track. Now overall,
I want to just ask real quick. What like? How would you guys describe? Because when I listened to that track, I was like, I was in the gym and I was like I was just on the treadmill, and then the thing came, like the song came on, and his voice went in, and it like totally threw me off. I wasn't sure.
It was
I don't
ridiculous.
know what was like wrong with the like. What do you guys think was wrong with his vocals? Because there was
no clue.
Off, right?
It was so off.
Yeah, I got nothing. My only thing was like, it didn't really matter because I thought the Kid LAROI kind of carried that track anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
I definitely wouldn't put it in the top tiers of like the best tracks on the project, but like, I mean, I think you guys are giving too much shit to that song just based on the feature. Because I mean, the Kid LAROI, honestly, like he didn't have he had two features, Corbin and then Juice WRLD, right?
And Juice WRLD, yeah.
He also had like Lil Mosey.
He had Lil Mosey.
Right, he had Lil Mosey. And Lil Mosey.
But
thing is,
it was mostly all him.
Yeah. Juice WRLD, Juice WRLD and Lil Mosey both had like 8-bar verses, something like that. Yeah.
Chuck, one more thing I will say, man, is outside of Not Fair, which to me was ruined by Corbin, none of the other tracks were unbearable or horrible. I wouldn't say that any of them were even that bad. It was just, to me, very, like you mentioned it as consistent. And for you, if you're into that emo trap production, you're into his aesthetic, his vibe, I can understand why you liked it because it's 14 of the same tracks, you know? But for someone who saw it as kind of, all right from the start, I wasn't super interested in what he had to say. It was kind of just generic and repetitive for me. And that's kind of where I was like, again, there weren't any tracks that were just horrible with the instrumental, or it's like the Kid LAROI's vocals were horrible. It was just kind of like Dimitri mentioned. For me, I wasn't really vibing with his voice. I can understand why some people would, though. And the production for me was more of generic than consistent.
I want to ask real quick, does the kid, he has a lisp, right? I feel like I like definitely heard a lisp when he was singing, or it's like something with how he like.
I don't know.
Something.
It's something with his S's, but it's not like I wouldn't say it's like
it's not like
it's
just to like mention, because I was curious when I was listening. I couldn't tell if like
I think it's more like a CE.
It's like
it's like I said.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I think I would say I'm more in the vein of like, the project was not really for me in terms of just what I listen to on a daily basis. I do think you have to come at it with kind of the new I don't want to say the new wave version of an album, in my opinion, in terms of like, like a Lil Mosey type record, or like a Juice WRLD type record, where it's an album, but it doesn't really have like it doesn't really have like a.
I mean, I think it's officially like a mixtape too. So
I thought it was technically like, but like, when you go
thematically,
the
themes were not the most important.
You look for like super developed themes and instrumental similarities, which he does have on this album. It definitely has like a tone about it in terms of how he makes it. But I would lean more into, I would have called it a mixtape, and I think it would have been a little Scotty might have gone a little bit easier on him.
I think it might officially be a mixtape. And so, like you said, Dean, an important thing to recognize here is context. Like, this is a 16-year-old on his debut project, making noise in the emo trap genre. It's not fair of me to expect a super layered, dense project that is thematically complex as well as musically
I think Chuck looked up.
It's titled as a debut mixtape.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So debut mixtape. I saw a lot of people calling it an album as well. It seems nowadays.
I mean, it's got skits and it's got like 15
Yeah.
tracks. So
Mixtape and
but
albums
yeah,
nowadays
It's really
can get
common,
pretty, like, the lines can get pretty blurred
they're
in
not
terms
that
of,
clear.
yeah. And I do want to say, the kid clearly can write a hook. Like, he knows how to
Yeah.
write a hit. You know, like
He's got some songwriting
like,
talent. There's potential down the road.
I'm sure Juice World, like, was in the lab with him, and he's like, okay, this is how you write, like, this is how you write a hook. This is how I write hooks. Because Juice WRLD was a hook god too, and even just like the moment that he was on this album, I just like when it transitioned from the Kid LAROI into the Juice WRLD feature, and we just got on Go on, just so that we got like a new voice to the album. I think it was a little bit more enjoyable for me, because even with a lot of artists, I sometimes, if it's a longer album, you kind of just want to hear new voices in the mix, just to like break up.
Yeah, I mean, the record was only 30 minutes, but I'm with
but
you that
just in general,
could have used a bit more variation.
I mean more like, if you're going through and you like want the album experience, and you're like, I'm gonna listen through the track list, and you're listening through a lot of tracks of one artist. I do like it when there's a few more features like sprinkled in there, just to differentiate, variety. I if you are an emo trap fan, if you're a Juice WRLD fan, Lil Mosey fan,
Trippie Redd fan.
Trippie Redd fan, to an extent, an X fan, or like a Lil Peep fan, even you can see all of these influences in the Kid LAROI, and I think down the line, to mention, he is only 16, so he's gonna have a lot of time to develop his craft, work on his verses. I think his verses are the weakest part of his songwriting, because I think it's very Juice WRLD-y in the vein that it seems like he's freestyling pretty much the verses. So you're not getting any
very simplistic rhyme schemes.
Yeah, you're not getting any crazy rhyme schemes, or any like, insane double entendres, or crazy, like, you guys get the idea. But but that's to be expected from a 16-year-old with his debut mixtape. I'm personally looking forward to what 3, 4, 5 years down the line, when he's a more seasoned songwriter, and he's a more seasoned just artist in general, and he's developed even more of his like own lane, because I can very easily enjoy that type of or that genre of rap, if it's done in like a really good way. I enjoyed a lot of Juice WRLD songs, not his whole album though. Is kind of my thing, which is kind of my knock on the Kid LAROI right now, along with some aspects of his songwriting.
Okay. Do we want to give our total scores then out of 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck, do you want to talk a little bit more about your thoughts on the record? Or?
I mean, you guys kind of hit my like main issues on the head. It was just like it was very surface level when you were talking like his emotion about just like his past. And I mean, I know I said like that was obviously the main theme of the album or the mixtape or whatever, so it was to be expected. Subject matter did get a little stale. The thing that you guys didn't touch on that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, which was plus for me, was he did mainly talk about his heartbreaks and his past relationships and shit, but he added a different layer to every single one, because first off, it was more like him examining the girl and how she played him, and then as it kind of went along, it kind of got more introspective and like what everything did to him. So I thought that was just kind of like a nice little narrative, like it's
you think so?
more external first, and then as it comes along, then it's more internal. I don't know if that was like intentional.
In his defense, I've only listened to the mixtape or mixtape or album twice through. So I'm sure if I go back, and if I find the time to sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna re-listen to it. I'm curious to see if I would see what you're saying, where it's like it's kind of like a mini narrative, where it's like he's talking like at first he's kind of immature and he's like, yo, this girl did this and this to me, and then later down the line he's like, okay, how did that affect me personally? I didn't catch on to that my first few listens, but I'll go back.
Yeah, Chuck. I saw that a bit, and I don't knock him for lack of trying at all. And I think there's potential down the road for a great record, because, like you said, he's trying to explore the right ideas. I just feel like the delivery and the conclusions that he comes to on a lot of them
Yep.
are off. They're unsettling and kind of unfinished is the way it sounded to me from a thematic standpoint. But like you said, he's trying to hit the right bases. And so I think definitely there's potential there.
Yeah. And he's definitely, as Dimitri said, he definitely knows how to ride a hook. He's definitely got that little package for the world.
He's definitely down the line. Like, I'm sure like next year or the next 2 years, I'm going to be like going through the top 100 and it's like Kid LAROI featuring Kid LAROI.
No,
you know, and
he's on the come up.
And I'm looking forward to you know, the dude having success. And I'm looking forward to, because I feel like the Kid LAROI is kind of like the amalgamation of the trap emo scene in a way, where it's like, okay, you've got the OG dudes, you've got Juice World, like came up one of the first Lyrical Lemonade guys, SoundCloud legend, stuff like that.
One of the pioneers of the genre.
Pioneers of the genre. Trippie Redd, very heavy on Trippie Redd. Juice World, X, you know, and he's got all of this to look back on, because emo trap is still like a really new genre.
For sure.
And I'm sure he's gonna look back and he's gonna be like, okay, what can I take from Juice World, and what can I use? Like, what did they do wrong with their records? And you know, how can I kind of like perfect the genre
how
in a
did
way?
they succeed?
And and definitely, how did they succeed? Because they are successful.
They did succeed.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that for the Kid LAROI. But just personally, this record isn't something I'm gonna like be going back to. It's not really bad for me. I would call it about average, which is what I gave it. I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
What did you give it, Chuck? I'm curious.
For me, I gave it a 7.
Okay.
I very much enjoyed it.
I can get that. Yeah.
To Scott's point about his voice just being like too like frail or whatever for him, or I think that might have been Dimitri. I actually didn't mind it so much, just because like
it's personal preference.
That's just a preference thing.
To listen to Trippie Redd, dude, it's like that's miles above Trippie, even though it's very comparable. And then obviously he's got the Juice WRLD in there, a little bit of influence from X and P. Excuse me. Yeah, dude, that was bad.
Yeah, it's been a long day, y'all, for Chuck.
Bro,
he's tired,
1
bro.
o'clock right
he's
now.
He's getting the bread, man. He's getting bread.
Yeah, but I think just overall, like, because anyone who's been a stan of this channel knows that, like, whenever someone like gets real and talks about like just past trauma and emotions, like, it speaks to me. So it was very just powerful to just have like a complete album.
We're almost at like 500,000 subscribers, right?
Almost.
Right.
We're almost there.
500K thank you video coming soon.
Yeah.
Just want to let y'all know. We didn't forget. We stay humble.
No, but for real, like the 30 of you who are subbed to this channel, we appreciate it.
We appreciate
it. We're at 30?
We're
I think that might be low. Like that might be a high estimate, Chuck.
We're at like
hey, highball, whatever, semantics. No biggie. We'll call it 50. 50 subscribers.
We're at 28. We're at 28 right now.
Okay, 28 times 2.
That's like T. Smith's IQ.
Hey, almost.
Okay, so Scott, what would you give the album?
Yeah, so Chuck, you actually brought up a good point I kind of want to address before I give you my score. When all the stuff I said about the record, I don't mean to invalidate any of his feelings or emotions. I just felt like he didn't convey them to me well through his songs. You know, I'm not saying that he wasn't in pain or any of that stuff. And I think my score would have been higher if we've been going off the old rubric where we kind of looked at it from more of a like, hey, the production was objectively good. But I think it's more fun now that we're giving it more of a personal enjoyment score, kind of hey, how did this record impact you? That way people can kind of see more of like, hey, based on what type of music you listen to, will this be a more enjoyable record for you? So personally, I gave it a 3 out of 10. I don't think I really don't see myself coming back to this record as anything unique or stand out. Like I said, I'm not a fan of the genre to begin with. So unless it's something that's special.
Transcendent,
Yeah,
Yeah.
So for me, it was a 3 out of 10. I could totally understand how a score would go up to a 7, Chuck, or a 5, Dimitri. So
I think for whoever's watching, you can definitely see like the kind of like the spectrum that we have, where Scott is a lot more into lyrical storytelling, OG vibes, Illmatic type ish, you know what I mean? And whereas Chuck and I, even to an extent, are a little more forgiving in terms of subject matter, content, stuff like that. If we're being objective, I'd probably lean a little more towards Scotty's side. But if you're a fan of the genre,
It's okay.
and
People in the comments got my back.
yeah, if you're a fan of the genre, which I know there are fans of the genre because it's like the most popular genre right now. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm sure for those out there, you're gonna enjoy the record. But if you're looking for something with a little more substance, or more of a cohesive story, cohesive story, something like that, you're probably not gonna find too much here. So I think that kind of describes this record to a T for the most part.
Asterisk K,
love the Kid LAROI. Let us know what you guys thought about it in the comments.
Road to 30 subscribe down below.
No, road to 500K starts now.
500K.
Yeah. All the stuff we've done before this, just ignore it. Road to 500K starts now.
Go blow up
now.
Let us know how you felt about the album, how you feel about the genre in general. If you think Scotty and I are tweaking and this is the album of the year, or if you think that Chuck is on one. We're kind of all on one right now. It's 1 a.m. So, we're all kind of running.
I ain't on one, bro. I only been up for like 3 hours. I'm just kidding.
I'm on one, but yeah. Let us know what you guys, how you guys felt. This has been The Last Word.